Can we afford to be dumb for free? See, that's the question I'm asking as I beg for an ounce of truth amongst the aloof surrounding me. My vices are proof that these demons keep hounding me. Reality keeps pounding me, almost astounding me into the strange hypocrisy. You see, I preach the same hope that I'm losing daily, like my religion. Peep how deep I bear my soul. I stand on the precipice of this crossroads. It's like I want to give my life to the cause, but which one? Ignorance is running so ridiculously rampant, I can't tell if I'm hating or merely debating just for fun. But I do know my heart heaves heavy upon hearing the fluttering hum of the feeble footsteps of fear, stamping out the ferocious flames of our dogged desire and determination to outpace the perilous prophecy our captors have programmed to be our faith, and thus our fate.
And you, Malcolm, are a part of me. I ride on rough waves of your words. I emit sound, mold, murder, spit, shape, create, life, blend.
Hey, this must be deep. And what happens is that when a lot of folks get ready to write poetry, that's what they decide they're gonna be, deep. They decide they're gonna be poetic. So they come up to me, people come up to me sometimes and say, hey, read my poem. I read it. But now outside the wall, I see. And the only thing I can say to them is, hey, this must be deep. Because like being influenced by the kind of poetry that we were all introduced to, people feel as though like the way to be poetic is to make sure that there's certain little parts of it can't nobody understand. The idea became not only to use ideas that were familiar to people in the community, but to use the language that everybody could understand. Of course, this poetry was always put down as street poetry because, of course, that's where the people were. People were on the street, and these were the people that you wanted to communicate with. Did an idea one time about how often it is that folks brother and sister one another, and how rare it is that something actually comes out of that people can grasp onto. Did a poem about the fact that oftentimes the people who are doing the most talking and the kind of conversations that you run into around this neighborhood should be the ones doing the most listening.
Well, I'm a T. I'll dog my face. I wanna get you on the corner beat, Charlie Chase.
Cold Crush.
Charlie Chase, as cute as could be, you sell your soul to the devil to play like me.
Well, I'm the R.
Ruby D.
And you got a lot of nerve when you play against me. You know you're gonna get served.
Cold Crush. Shady L, the Lords of Lords, and Ruby D, my man, your shit is on the boards.
You all can't ball. You all can't ball. I'm the K.
Kevin Kev.
And I'm not the fake. You know I eat your ass up like a steak you take.
Cold Crush.
You know the all game is legit, and when we get on the court, I'm gonna sneak your shit.
The W.
Whip a whip.
And I'm here to say that I can rock your world like the Dr. J.
Cold Crush.
Tony Tone, known to be ill, but everybody knows I can deal with the pill. I'm the D. Dada Rock. On this here court, I've been 9 years old playing this here sport.
Cold Crush.
AD, as highest degree, I got a better jump shot than Rick Barry. Well, I'm the M.
That's right.
Like all the pretty girls, I serve your monkey ass like Earl the Pearl.
Cold Crush.
I'm not the cast or GMC. I'm gonna stick it on the board, man. Can't you see?
Talking low. Strictly from a rhythm standpoint, Biggie is a swinger. He swings like a horn player over jazz. B-I-G-P-O, P-P-A, no info for the D-E-A. He put more emphasis on the He's just spelling his name. When people say Pac is the best rapper of all time, they don't just mean he's the best rapper. They just mean what he had to say was most potent, most relevant, and that he was the better human being. Tupac pulled from Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, all the good speakers. Even though you was a crack fiend, mama, you always was a black queen, mama. It's like pouring those words out because you mean it. Humpty Hump and Slick Rick rhyme from the nasal palate. Nas rhymes from the back of his throat.
Starts right here, and then it goes right up in here, and it be in your toenail.
It's a feeling.
What I feel. That is essential as, you know, fat laces or anything.
To me, really what it means is like a huge mass of people or minds put together, you know, with positive thinking, you know?
Really, there's not too much prejudice within hip-hop.
Hip-hop is the only all-based culture that has no racial differences.
You got white people, you got black people, you got Mexicans, Puerto Ricans.
Hip-hop's not limited to one geographical area, one social group.
Hip-hop is you, hip-hop is me. Hip-hop is a subculture also of culture, you know, of whatever culture you are.
As they say, quote-unquote, a culture.
It's a culture. A culture of people.
It's the most revolutionary culture in America. American-made.
Saying describe or define hip-hop is like saying define black people or define white people.
I can't define hip-hop, man.
You can't, because anything you say would be a stereotype.
To me, I can't really even say it.
Anything you say, somebody else could contradict it because it's another way somewhere else.
Go on for hours and still people arguing with you.
I can't tell you what hip-hop is. I know what it is to me.
That's hip-hop.
Unity, yeah, basically how to properly document hip-hop, and we were realizing that in order to properly document hip-hop for the future, we also have to understand how we have been documented as a people and why that has caused such a dysfunction when it comes to respecting each other's perspectives and contributions within hip-hop.
Well, we can, of course, debate that, and this is what history is really all about, because some of what was said even to me was wrong. Because some of what was said even to me was wrong. So now that we have a 40-year history, now we looking back on it, Ahmed Scholar, been there from the beginning. He now can bring forward the other members that are now coming to him. Disco King Mario, if I may respectfully call your name.
Cool D.
Cool D. These are other figures that were left out of hip-hop's history because our history was basically documented through rappers, rap artists, and videos and fanzine magazines, as Legs, as you pointed out, that we were young. Hip-hop was happening. We are hip-hop, so we wasn't documenting ourselves, we were being ourselves.
After all, no one asked me to be a writer. No, I asked for it. So, you know, I can't really complain. No, come to the territory. I was born at a certain time, in a certain skin, in a certain place.
History repeats itself. The first as tragedy, then as farce. No, at what expense does the salvation come with the truth? And where does the question for morality surpass intellectual capacity? Even when the culture failed to distinct the ideal from the confines of reality. And now, the inquiry of the conscious has become designed as a weapon. What better space than hip-hop to exploit blackness as the product? While the power of the narrative is born from ignorance, because that power makes weakness an instrument for war, and this war becomes indiscriminate. Truth be told, the conditions were always subject to change within every era, whether the phonetics expanded from a region or were constantly adrift. From the evolution of every revolution in black liberation and celebration, the Renaissance in Harlem and Chicago, negritude and the Rastafarian liberation, up to the Black arts and Caribbean arts movements. For every art, there is inspirations of joy, sorrow, rage, fear, and virtues aligned between life or death. And because of our pre-existence, the oppression within the system has now played its hand. Though unlike before, it has been designed and programmed to divide and compose humanity into its nourishment. Thus, the vestige of lost voices and rhythms become scarce among the generations. So, the greatest power in history, among the erasure and revisions ongoing, is the gift of spiritual inheritance. So who exactly am I in this story? A millennial born to two African American parents from the city of Chicago, but birthed in North Carolina. Though, as you might have started guessing, my life was constantly on the move for essentially all my childhood. You could say the downsides vary between my lack of true community dynamics to an incohesive family infrastructure at times, but I've grown to mature beyond that. Though not entirely without some time in service, I've appreciated the collective memories of my impact and in turn the imprint those left upon me through my lived experience as a black man. My story, like many others, is a constant battle of duality in a multifaceted war against the system, which we still live to survive, our disposition in communities that we engage, and the means taken to preserve our humanity as individuals. My real journey into hip-hop began just before the blog era. I was still listening to most albums from the late 90s, the exception being Lupe's Food and Liquor, Ye Slick Registration, more than half of Outkast's albums today, a little 3-6 Mafia, my fair share of 50 Cent, and still was a Nas fan at heart. My only excuse for being as late as I was had only been because my mom was busy playing neo soul and old school joints constantly, while I was exposed to more late 90s dirty South sounds from my dad. Those days, there was still a way to manage a livable wage between poverty and the literal middle class. And then came the blog era. At the time, I owned an MP3 player and got access to a desktop setup. There was still a time where my only option was Last FM. Those first 3 albums I got were left back by Little Brother, Wanted to Prove The Hangover by Static Selecta, and Overly Dedicated by Kendrick Lamar. From there on, my horizon has been expanded to encompass my hidden black nerd and mature my palette, thus embarking on my individual self-development. Season that with a decent social life, some Baptist influences, and some military fitness activities, then you get a contemporary history of my story in that era. But honestly, I owe much credit to my family and friends, both past and present, for giving me the foundation for who I am and what I can aspire to be for others in the coming future. Throughout it all, my intent is to analyze, define, recall, and detail the steps necessary to form a proper solution in the current age. Back during the start of COVID-19, I began listening to the channel Home Team History, listening to Professor Odie's The Antidote, and trying to keep myself as fit as possible. I took a job, a contract, to travel and assist in preparing IT equipment for various clients. My journey of African studies had not been one to fully grasp the concept of critical race theory just yet. Heck, most of my world have been a sea of failed conservative propaganda, making myself serviceable for various communities, and diligently performing my role as son, man, or both, often to some expense. Though I've started to go through a brief period of rediscovery of the golden age of hip-hop, and I mean really digging in the crates to dig up uncharted territories with new gems. For the first time in a while, I found the desire to challenge the conventions of my worldview and existence of those within the same frame, to properly discern the influence of the modern dichotomy to that of another era, to explore the depth and significance of Big L, EPMD, The Roots, MC Breed, Delta Funkin' Homo Sapien, and even the Jungle Brothers, to what progressed hip-hop. To grasp an understanding of what makes hip-hop culture unique from its predecessors, siblings, and its offsprings, it has to be addressed from a foundational developmental stage. And no, I'm not talking about the first hip-hop record, live broadcast, or party here. I'm talking about the good old authentic black history lessons. You know, the kind of stuff that makes black art into the sounds of blackness.
Is that Prince or King? Come here, Prince. What's today's mathematics? Hey, yo, no disrespect, but we ain't in all of that, son.
Build, destroy. To build is to elevate the mentalities of self and those around self. To add positive energy to every nation. To build, you must first start from the root. it's just the knowledge foundation. And add on to the highest peak. To destroy is to eliminate and destroy any and all negativity that enters my cipher of supreme harmony.
Peace, God.
Peace, God.
Come on, son. Brother.
Behind every form of Black expression, there are experiences that inspire creativity from the soul. We're talking the types of patterns behind a drum, the sequence of riffs to play from a bass, acoustic, or electric guitar, keyboard or piano keys to bring into the harmony, and the dynamic incorporation of a sax or trumpet. But to elevate and give song to direction, a purpose, a story, a voice is essential in illustrating the art. Let's keep it 100. The African diaspora has been at the crux of cultural exchange, whether it be humanities, mathematics, or the sciences, to aid in the development of many civilizations. Especially here in the Western Hemisphere, there has been constant efforts to not just revise history, but to deter and erase credibility. Yet, we're still required to give more than we're allowed to take in return. Have there been efforts to reclaim the lost heritage and restore the welfare of the disenfranchised? Yes. Has there been opposition from a coalition of Eurocentric power systems to stop this from happening? Of course. Are there adversaries from within working to benefit from this? Without a doubt. But how relevant is this to the birth of hip-hop? Class is in session.
Capitalism doesn't just rape your labor and rip off your resources, it deforms your thinking. It deforms your thinking. I told the man, you're not thinking. He said, what you mean? He said, I saw it happen. It's finished. I said, you never judge a system by its adherents. You never judge any system by its believers. You judge it by its principles. He said, I don't understand what you're talking about. I said, all I'm saying to you, brother, is you don't judge socialism by socialists. He said, you're talking double talk. I said, am I? He said, you will tell me that you can't judge socialism by socialists. Who you judge it by? I said, let me ask you one question. Do you judge Christianity by Christians? If you judge Christianity by Christians, it fell with Judas. And if it didn't fall with Judas, so many, many Christians in so many, many ways every day violates every principle of Christianity. When you judge a system, you judge it by its principles. Christianity has been betrayed everywhere. The Pope used it to divide the world. Slave masters used it to bring about slavery. But me, I will never condemn Christianity. I know its principles. The principles are just, therefore eternal. Any man, any woman, any time wishing to live a just life can pick up the principles, imitate them, and live them. Call the laws of gravity Newton's laws. I'm sure there's a mnemonic device to help you on your quizzes. But you certainly cannot believe that Isaac Newton can found that a body falls at the rate of 32 feet per second squared per second squared. He can't find this. He can't discover it. He cannot invent it. He can only observe it and record it. Discover the law. If I'm sitting in Timbuktu in Africa and I've never heard of Sir Isaac Newton and I'm conducting any experiments with gravity, I will come to the same conclusion that he does. A body in motion tends to stay in motion unless stopped by an outside force. He cannot invent this. He can only observe it and record it. Karl Marx did not invent socialism. If I'm sitting in Libya, in the desert, and I'm doing any research with capital and labor without ever having heard of Karl Marx, I will come to the same conclusion that he did. That any time capital seeks to dominate labor, there'll be a ruthless, uncompromising struggle on the part of labor until it comes to crush capital and dominate it. This is a fact. My history demonstrates that. We came here as chattel slaves for centuries. We fought and fought and fought until we crushed it. Now we're just slave of the wage, and now we've got to rise up and crush that one.
First, let's think about the origin surrounding those conditions. Historical context matters here. I'm specifically referring to the year 1965 and the full effect that would have on Black culture in the United States going forward. The tragedies, the celebrations, the conflicts, the declarations of life amidst that reality we live. What better way to connect generations of various regions and ethnicities beyond literature, beyond their class, beyond their disposition? It's gotta have some real serious funk, that real wild jazz, go deep in the blues and let the soul fly out. The brilliance of black arts are that they derive from conflict, internal and external vivid emotions, freeform comedy, portraying an image, and delivering the message beyond their work.
Entendre was used as a figure of speech where a phrase had two meanings, one of which typically was risque, ironic, or playful, while the other is more innocent or neutral. This technique allowed for layered interpretation of the words, creating humor or deeper commentary. The term originates from the French language where double means two and entendre means to understand. It has roots in classical literature and has been employed since Shakespeare's time, notably in his plays where he uses it to inject wit or often sexual innuendo. Now, long before hip-hop or even most modern music genres existed, double entendres were already being used in language and literature. Some of the earliest written texts, like those of the ancient Sumerians, contain examples of this linguistic technique. Take the love song of Shu Sin, one of the oldest poems in human history. One line reads, "Plow my vulva, man of my heart." On the surface, it refers to the act of farming and plowing fields, but metaphorically it conveys intimacy, using agricultural imagery to symbolize love and fertility. Look, from my perspective, the human mind seems to be naturally wired to find and create double meanings. It's a fascinating aspect of language and expression. In the movie, Monica once took to Twitter to crown Jay-Z with the greatest double entendre of all time, but I would argue that MF Doom holds that title. Let's roll the clip.
One for the money, two for the better green, 3, 4 methylene, dioxymethamphetamine.
Doom flips 4 into the number 4, referencing MDMA's full chemical name, 3,4-methyl-dioxymethamphetamine. This also encapsulates the 1 to 4 count, a masterclass in wordplay that fuses numbers, drugs, and classic rap cadences into one seamless bar. Pusha T, who is a master of slick double entendres, delivers them so effortlessly that they often slip by as just another line.
I build mine off fed time and dope lines. You caught steam off headlines and cosigns.
Now here, Fed Time works on 2 levels. It references both serving time in federal prison and the time he's put into mastering the game. Dope Lines plays on his reputation for crafting elite bars while also alluding to, of course, literal drug dealing. He contrasts this with rappers who've gained fame through media buzz and industry cosigns, which some might interpret as a subtle jab at Drake's rise to prominence. Lupe Fiasco, who will often format his verses where the whole verse is a double entendre, or even his classic album The Cool, which to me can be interpreted as a whole double entendre in itself. Absol is another artist who's known for his witty double entendres as well. Let's roll the clip.
Ain't never running from nothing, I'm fit to treadmills. Name another movement making time stand still. Cause I'm a king and I smoke a lot of weed. That makes sense, it's about 33 ounces in a liter.
Ladies and gentlemen, I said that to make this point. You cannot define the art of rapping, a spoken word, metaphorical or illusory, to translate the meaning of the collective conscious for all people. Meaning, not one message is to be relayed the same for in every context, for every person, because a real lived experience is only a piece among billions of stories. Otherwise, it wouldn't go very far. This doesn't mean other minorities or cultures cannot relate or participate in the art, but there exists a boundary that separates the level of access and control to operate in an elevated domain. Not all rights are distributed equally, as functional dynamics between race, class, and gender, etc. are exchanged within how the craft gets expressed. Of course, we're seeing what happens when there's a lack thereof.
His music felt like something I could relate to in so many ways. One of my all-time favorites, Nikes on My Feet, is a perfect example of Mac being a true student of the game while staying authentic to himself. The Nas sample paired with Mac's smooth delivery made it something truly special.
Lace 'em up, lace 'em up, lace 'em up, lace 'em. Blue suede shoes stay crispy like bacon.
Look, Mac made it cool to be yourself, and he did so while rapping his ass off. Speaking of rapping his ass off, Mac's freestyle over Mobb Deep was absolutely brilliant. Let's roll the clip.
Eating shawarma, doing drawings of Chewbacca, bumping flocka, fuck the drama, marijuana, business comment.
No fancy shit, just a bucket hat, a hoodie, and straight up bars. Mac Miller was cut from a rare cloth. He wasn't a gangster, he wasn't black, and he never used his whiteness as a gimmick. Yet everyone from gang-banging rappers from the West Coast to weed connoisseurs down south respected him not just for his elite lyricism, but for who he was as a person. When Kendrick Lamar dropped his infamous Control verse, Mac responded to the diss record in true Mac Miller fashion. Even when in rap battle form, Mac always always had this way of not taking himself too serious, and quite frankly, that's why everyone loved him. Mac Miller was so hip-hop, he fought a $10 million lawsuit against Lord Finesse just so he could clear the sample for the track Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza and tell you how his summer went.
Kool-Aid and frozen pizza. It's a work of art, I ain't cock a Mona Lisa.
Lord Finesse, a pioneer of figurative language and rap music, paved the way for future rappers like Big L, Fred the Godson, and Fabulous. On Mac Miller's 2010 mixtape Kids, specifically on the track Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza, Mac raps over the instrumental of Lord Finesse's 1995 song Hip to the Game.
Finesse fell off, that's what some figure. You better see Mary Blige and get the 411, nigga.
Lord Finesse sued Mac Miller and his label Rostrum Records and the mixtape hosting site DatPiff for $10 million, claiming that Mac's use of the beat constituted copy. Mac Miller defended the track as a non-commercial release, stating that it was made in the spirit of hip-hop and not intended for profit. The situation sparked debates over the use of beats on mixtapes and the legalities of borrowing from older hip-hop records, which is quite ironic seeing as hip-hop is a sample-based genre. In 2013, the lawsuit was settled out of court. Those specific terms were not disclosed. Both parties moved on with no further public follow between Mac or Lord Finesse. After the settlement, the point is, the cosigns Mac ever got was from Fonte of Little Brother.
So here's something you might want to bear in mind when it comes to culture in America. By that, I'm saying labor, physical, emotional, spiritual, can be commodified into a measure of productivity and converted into profit, buy, sell, or trade. Consciously or not, this is inseparable from how we interact within the system that is formed by categories of race, class, and gender, what have you. But what makes hip-hop stand apart from every other genre is the ability to be raw yet refined, irrational yet intelligent, between a living contradiction and a dying realization, to be able to communicate, challenge, create the vision of the world and the elements within, is what makes hip-hop the powerful force of nature it is. The best part, it brings the convention of society and the culture to evolve, to inspire, to express truth and lie.
He has rapped with the best of them: Black Thought, Mac Miller, Raekwon, J. Cole, and Kendrick Lamar, just to name a few. There's a certain elegance and grace that Rapsody and Issa put forth in their art, which is really a reflection of the resilience of the modern black woman. These are two black women in male-dominated spaces. It's not just Rapsody and Issa being females in a male-dominated space. It's the fact that they're unapologetically successful black women in a systematically racist and white male-dominated infrastructure. I look at Rapsody's Lila's Wisdom and Issa's Insecure as their debut classic projects. It's their Illmatic, their Reasonable Doubt, and their 36 Chambers. And Issa Rae's Awkward Black Girl was like her mixtape before dropping her debut album. Before her breakthrough with Insecure, Issa was a byproduct of the internet era. Her earlier works like the web series Awkward Black Girl mirrors Insecure in a lot of ways, just without all the money behind it, of course. There's a certain authentic cloth that Issa and Rapsody are cut from that's quite frankly rare and should be acknowledged. Rapsody's more album Eve pays homage to those before her, as each song is named after an influential black woman. Issa Rae's company, Issa Rae Productions, which is now called Hooray Media, focuses on showcasing underrepresented voices, particularly black women, through various film and television projects. But the truth of the matter is, the number speaks volume to the rare positions Rapsody and Issa hold. The unemployment rate for black women over 20 is nearly double that of any other race. 49% of black women feel that their race or ethnicity will make it harder for them to get a raise, promotion, or chance to get ahead, compared to just 3% of white women and 11% of women overall. 79% of black women have reported having to alter their appearance or demeanor to fit in work.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View. I didn't catch you at the wrong time, did I?
Let's put this in context of competition and cultivation as they go hand in hand. One is necessary to engage for the sake of remediation. The other is to progress the craft. If you switch those words around, the context will mean the same thing. But again, the dialogue has to remain in this context. No separation, no fixation, no repackaging, as entire nations have waged war over problems like this. To take it a step further, let's highlight the movie of the summer, arguably the year, Sinners. The overall moral is basically protect and preserve the spirit of black music from the guise of white supremacy, yeah. Or better yet, to cleanse and restore black art from the evil within the capitalism, yes. In either context, this still presents a problem within black media as well as the digital economy today.
smokestack twins represent the black bourgeoisie that have learned the trade from white society and come back to spread this infection among the community. Yes, it is an infection, and you don't need me to explain why that is. Instead of returning back to the community to create something of a vanguard or a liberatory front against an oppressive system, they instead further participate in the very system and practice that was designed to keep indigenous people and immigrants exploited. I think there's a lot to be said about how this is platformed in something that is, at best, morally ambiguous as opposed to something that should be completely reprehensible. Not the nature of the juke joint itself, but the nature of the twins' ambition to make a juke joint. Don't let the black-owned tagline fool you because it was bought with white money and given to them by a white man. So we have the black capitalist being the opposing force to the antagonistic white-legged socialist identity within the vampires, seen as an iteration of erasing culture, tradition, and identity through their social collective. There is an interpretation of this being capitalism versus communism. For example, we see the church as one of the pillars within the black community, both historically and within the context of this movie, and the path of moral goodness and society. As mentioned prior, we see the critiques of Christianity from those like Delta Slim and Remick. But the very preachings from Sammy's father came to pass. We know how capitalism uses religion to justify methods to pacify and control the community of the oppressed class, and while within many communists, religion is not an inherent bad and can find its place spiritually within society, there are schools of thoughts within communism that see the material conditions in which religion places itself as a classist and heavily structured indoctrinated practice in the greater benefit of the good of the ruling class, given the uprising and given the conditions in which it was birthed on and how it is perpetrated within such communities. So the opportunists in the Smokestack Brothers lead them to dealing with the clan members in order to get their juke joint, which, if the Night of the Vampires didn't happen, they would have circled back to find the Grand Dragon and his goons pulling up to light the place up. It's a telling notion that they were already dancing with the devil the second they struck business with a white man, as black capitalism doesn't exist to better benefit or profit a stronger foundation of infrastructure for the black community. It's still just capitalism, and the people that will profit the most from it are not the ones that are disenfranchised, but instead those who are already in positions of power to profit from such a system, or more accurately put, those who are in a position to exploit a larger working class of labor. And what this film does is present that case under the layer of the constant siege from outside races that seek to pillage talents, skills, and resources within the black community, and through platforming that battle above the internal one within the community, that being the advocacy of such an opportunistic system, we will look at governments influenced by multi-billion corporations and capitalism. These very tools sway, shift, and dictate the collective idea of truth and pursuit of freedom. So when Kendrick stands as an individual but speaks for the culture, we, due to the system we are in, view his words as truth and validity despite our rational judgment. Rationale towards our perception of Kendrick when viewed upon in a greater social science is heavily skewed to find collective victories in his individual victories, and therefore we project a sense of freedom through his triumph that we, as people, can no longer relate to. How can a collective see this as a collective win when it only benefits an individual and not even the entire production? Well, yes, I am for black independence not being contingent on major white capitalist conglomerates, as I mentioned. The idea of this deal being something that should be celebrated isn't something that makes sense to me. What it represents for the greater community is still just an individualized victory seen in private ownership. The same with Tyler Perry Productions and Revolt. The idea is that the crux of these Smokestack twins represent black ownership. Yes, but black capitalism can never just be disassociated from exploiting the working class. The time and setting of this film just does an amazing job at illustrating the inception of what we've seen in the present time to be something as a parasitic leech. Additionally, we also see this through the Smokestack twins using Mary's passing whiteness as a means to get money from the vampires, white people, for an advantageous gain. So, once again, black capitalism isn't really black because to some degree there is a dependability on white society and its infrastructure to better establish or even renovate the community and or opportunity created within the black community. One with a clan member with conniving intentions of taking the property back and killing all the black people associated with the construction of the business, and then the other of using white people to gain from white people, but inevitably it results in the assimilation and removal of ownership, or more accurately put, the desire to have the very identity of the juke joint erased. This tale is historically seen as well in settled colonies in Africa, with Europeans persuading indigenous Africans with their buying power in exchange for their land and resources. But as we see, this additionally comes with using those very people as labor to further advocate their own interest. While I don't expect a lot of people to agree with me on this, I feel like engaging in this discussion, this interpretation, is as important as all the other ones. The same conversation in respect of how a lot of you misguided ass Negroes thought it was funny to get this ginger or black people joke cracking right after watching this movie. Now it's time to get into the main shit.
Ryan Coogler, just like Boots Riley, Spike Lee, or Fred Williamson, share the common interest of the black-owned, black excellence political fantasy mythos to market the ongoing tradition around black politics in their respective age. And you may wonder if that should be a bad thing. Well, there's a reason why the gap between black exploitation and radical politics exists in the first place. I'll admit that Sinners, beyond my own and others' critique, is still a phenomenal film for what it does accomplish. Just a reminder that as much gatekeeping that was done to keep the culture safe, there were just as many dangers within that posed just as great of a threat. Not to mention, there's also interdependent structures of power that are vital to this culture, meaning that any means of removal or modification will cause disaster to unfold as a result.
A couple years back that celebrated the rise of black surrealism in film, but also criticized films like American Fiction and Get Out for being so concerned with letting white folks in on the joke at the cost of reducing their message to the culture, which I don't disagree with. But the irony is that that same article contrasted and praised Declone Tyrone for not doing that, when I'd argue that Declone Tyrone is probably the worst offender of those three. The Times article praises the movie because it challenges its characters and thereby its audience not to submit themselves to racist narratives concerning black identity. But the problem is in the way both the movie and the article frames Fontaine, and for that matter Slick Charles. It's basically arguing that it's your choice, nay, your duty to just rise up and overcome your condition no matter your origin. It also argues that by not doing so, you're just as complicit as the state who created you in perpetuating your own condition, which again is not completely wrong, but it's nowhere near the full story. This is where the nihilism part comes in. Like I've said in past videos, the hood, and most definitely the streets, has its own code of ethics, one that isn't all that concerned with what mainstream society thinks, because mainstream society doesn't think about the hood until election season or when y'all run out of weed. I talked in the past about how growing up, we had our own form of what a lot of academics now would call communal policing, restorative justice, and even mutual aid. These things came about as a result of neglect by mainstream society, not because that society taught us how to do them. In the same way, the Tyrones of the world come about, many if not most, due to those same factors, necessity. The implication of Tyrone being little more than an unwitting pawn of the state, even if unintentionally, reduces him, and at worst, it dehumanizes him. It reduces his role to the very trope that the movie is trying to tell its audience not to succumb to. But it never really bothers to ask why we would succumb to that trope. I mean, it kind of comes close in doing so with Yo-Yo's arc, who says at one point that she never intended to be a sex worker. I mean, who does? She had hopes and dreams beyond the Glen, and the accolades in her room say as much, but it just never happened for her. And that's the frustrating part for me. We never dig into why it didn't happen for her. And part of me feels like we didn't do that on purpose, because doing so would kind of contradict that whole first message of the movie, right?
Speaking of, hip-hop's history embodies the lived conditions of a community. the illustration of humanity's state, and the interactions that shape or define one's life. That's why, beyond words on the street and rocking the sickest style, you don't underestimate the power of authenticity through hip-hop. Considering that we're in an age where it pays more to be a prophet for profit, it becomes a necessity to expose grift by gifting life evidence in its place. Let's cover what's been explained thus far. Hip-hop existed first in the spirit of challenging society beyond its systemic structures. To be hip-hop means engaging with an authentic frame of expression that operates to the limits of artistic boundary. For there to be a proper evolution in culture, it requires the ability to sustain cultivation while seeking to compete and challenge to progress the craft. Though, even with this understanding, there is still another level we need to delve deeper into. The baseline for hip-hop this year is possibly the greatest in maybe over a decade. But there's also something becoming more problematic when it comes to the dialogue surrounding representation in hip-hop. Despite what may be seen as generational, sociological, or a spiritual disconnect, there's still a critical need to address this. Though, for now, this will be a 3-part series, with several short videos exploring the journey of what is to come next. Thus, it's important to engage with the audience and study the algorithm for the echoes of those within the same mind. Right now, peace and many blessings to you all. See you on the next one.